Hey everybody, this is the Put Up Your Dukes podcast. I am Rob Dukes. How you guys doing today? I hope you are well. Today's the 13th episode I'm doing. I have, which is funny, today's the 13th of March. I have 29 years sober today. So this episode, my guest is none other than Mark Osegueda from Death Angel. He's been my friend forever. Toured a lot, had some monstrous laughs. Man, every time we hang out, it's just nothing but laughing and hanging out. Told some great stories, had a great conversation. So since last week, I went and saw my dad. My dad had a lung transplant a year ago, and he is doing well. He had some complications, so I flew out. I surprised him. He didn't know I was coming. I just did it all behind his back and just showed up. And it was fun, man. We had some good laughs. We, had some good talks. And we just laughed a lot. And I love my dad, man. If you guys know my dad, you'd love him too. He's an awesome human being. So, have you guys watched Mindhunter? So I told my dad to watch it while I was there, and he never watched John Wick either, which I find insane. John Wick's another one of my favorite movies. But if you watch Mindhunter, there's the guy who plays BTK. So they don't actually talk about BTK yet in the first two seasons because it talks about the early stuff from the 70s and up into the early 80s. But BTK was doing all this stuff while this was going on, right? And the guy who plays BTK is this creepy, weird guy with like a cop mustache and he's just creepy as fuck. And they only show him in little snippets. Well, he's in the new Jimmy John's commercial and he looks exactly the same. And when I see the commercial, that's all I fucking see is BTK. I'm like, holy shit. So anyway, he's not the guy from Everybody Loves Raymond. He's the other guy. Another thing I saw this week. So a guy got eaten by a shark in Australia, and they have video of it. And it's so you could do two things. You could be a normal human being and watch the blurred out version and see how awful it is, or you can be like me and go search and find the original footage of the guy actually being eaten by a shark, and it is fucking horrendous. It is terrifying. And, I love sharks, man. I know the guy was just hungry. He didn't, he doesn't have a, what's weird? That we will be angry at, like humans who do weird shit, right? Like we don't, you can be scared of sharks, but you can't really hate sharks because it's not in their DNA. It's not personal. This guy didn't owe the shark money, and he went and said, well, fuck you, I'm going to eat you. He's just doing what sharks do, which is eat stuff floating in the water. And normally they just take a bite and realize we're too bony and they don't really like us. But this guy was obviously hungry because he bit his legs off, and then the guy's floating there, and then he comes back and eats the rest of it, and it's fucking horrendous to watch. So I don't suggest it. I suggest watching the blurry one. Also, I saw real disturbing footage. There was two teams in Mexico playing soccer, football. They were playing soccer, and the teams decided to, the crowd decided to fight. 17 dead. And I saw the footage of it, and it's fucking... I don't understand how people can be mad at sharks for doing what they do when humans are just despicable, a virus of beings on this fucking... Dude, they were kicking people to death and stabbing them. But before that, they would tear their clothes off because they were wearing clothes of the opposite team. And for some reason, they're all naked and they're just kicking the shit out of them. I mean, this guy was getting... it was like watching the footage from Reginald Denny, the trucker in the LA riots. when they hit him in the head with a brick. That's what it was like watching that, but like over and over. I mean, it was fucking gross. And once again, while watching it, I'm going, the meteor can't get here fast enough. Anyway, what else do I watch? Oh, I watched this crazy show where a guy, it was about Times Square in the 70s, and how it was all the sex and peep shows and all that. And it first started with the nudie booth, where you would just see pictures of a girl, and then it elevated to video, and then movies, and then there were all these. And I lived there, so I walked through there, and it was fucking creepy and weird, man, for sure. But there was a serial killer during all this time, and he was killing and hacking up women, but they were talking to like all the people that were hanging out there, and had they talked to the guy who ran all the theaters, and they talked to this one guy who his job. So eventually it ended up that video wasn't enough. They went up to live sex, so you could watch, women inside this room by themselves, and then eventually that led to couples doing it on a bed in the middle of a room with hundreds of people watching live. This guy's job was he had to do it 8 times a day, 30 minutes a session, and to the same woman. It was him and his wife, and that dude's a god among men, man. 8 times a day, 30 minutes a pop. 30 minutes? 30 minutes. Jesus Christ. 30 minutes. And hey, you guys want a good giggle? You want a good laugh? Go check out the Sunday Papers podcast and give it a listen. It's Greg Fitzsimmons and Mike Gibbons. It's one of my favorites, man. It's the one I listen to all the time. And it's a good podcast and very funny. And send Greg a message. He gives the email out, send him a message, and tell him I sent you. All right? That being said, my guest, Mark from Death Angel, one of my favorite people on the planet. Here he is. Enjoy.
There you go. Mr. Dukes.
What's up, Mr. Mark?
How you doing, buddy? Man?
Good,
man.
How
are you?
I'm good, man.
Long time.
It's been a long fucking time.
Yeah.
I probably haven't talked to you. Well, we've texted back once in a while, but we haven't really talked in probably a year, man, if not more.
Probably. I've been kind of, it's been a wacky couple of years, bro.
Yeah, it really has been, Not in our lifetime, man,
Yeah. Well, hopefully not again, at least.
Well, thank you for doing this, man. So first off, I want to say that I thought Mark was in San Francisco, so I thought I had more time because we were talked about noon. And then he's like, oh, yeah, man, 15 minutes, we're good. I'm like, oh, no, fuck, he's in Florida. Fuck. So,
yeah, I am, bro.
2 hours the other way. Yeah. So what are you doing in Florida?
My girl lives out here.
Okay. Where at?
So, Sanford. It's where we recorded the last 4 records.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is that near?
Probably about, it's near Orlando, so maybe 25 minutes, 30 minute drive to Orlando, 25.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
How things going?
Going good. I guess it's kind of crazy. I'm just, biting at the bit to play, get out there and tour. Luckily we played live a few times, but I want to tour, man. I want to tour. I want to tour.
I know. I hear you.
Did
you I know you got the Exodus Testament tour coming up. I know you're looking forward to that. That's April, May. All right. What's funny is that you were playing in Long Island and Generation Kill was playing in New York on the same night. You were with
Metal
Allegiance. Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And I remember we just couldn't we had a gig and we had planned it, like it got shoved back. It was like, this was back in December, so it was kind of like we kept putting the gig off, and then finally it just like, all right, we're going to do it that day. And I'm like, oh, fuck, that's the same day. Fucking, oh, well.
Yeah. I mean, that Metal Allegiance show that we did in Long Island, was happening, then it wasn't happening, then it was happening. So we all just kind of, made it happen, made it happen. And it was a blast. That was actually the first time, that show was the first time I'd been on stage to a live audience since this whole, pandemic started, since we were in Europe with Testament and Exodus. So I kind of got my feet wet before having to do any Death Angel shows, in front of the crowd.
You guys working on new stuff? Or
technically, yes.
Yes, because you didn't really ever get to tour the last one.
Yeah. So technically we're working on new stuff. It's just, we're early stages. Rob's writing riffs. I have a couple rough, I guess, structures that he sent me a while ago that I wrote lyrics to and, put melodies down to. But, it's just, it is what it is. He's writing. We'll see how the process goes.
Yeah. I think once you start playing shows again, all that'll just fall back into place once everything, hopefully goes back to normal. I mean, I'd like to be optimistic, but I'm a pessimistic fuck. So I'm like, it's just going to get worse, man. Something worse is going to come along and we're fucked, man. So I feel bad for all the crew guys, the guys that really made a living from all this. They're not, musicians too, but it goes farther than the musicians. I mean, people have this idea that if you're, if you're out there touring, that you're financially stable, and that's not always the case. Sometimes especially with a crew and the sound guys and the guitar techs and the drum techs and the guys that even it goes back to the clubs and the people that are bartending and the people that are working the door and the ticket people and everything took such a huge fucking monstrous, disastrous fucking hit. And
bro, it's been brutal. It's been insane, for our crew, of course. Yeah. And then crews that have, touring with larger bands even, but that's the trickle down effect to, I guess medium-sized bands like us, and then bands that are in a van, going for it in their crews. It's brutal. And of course, exactly when it comes to people who work at clubs, I bartended for years, and that whole industry shut down. It's insane, so, but I mean, it's affected everyone, but it doesn't make it better, misery loves company. But at the same time, enough is a fucking enough, man.
Yeah, man. Fuck. I think some people are even like, they're like, okay, look, if I get sick and die, then it's worth it. I just want to go live and do what I'm going to do. And if that's what happens, that's what happens. I mean, I've talked to a few people and that's what they said. They go, I don't care. I just want to go. And, of course I don't want to kill my mom, but
right.
I need to go. And if the consequences are that I get or whatever, they're willing to take the risk for themselves personally, but not put it on other people, which is basically, that's the hardest part.
For sure. So it's been hard on a lot of people. I mean, the way I see it is, I'm so passionate about touring and playing music and creating music. I'm going to do whatever I can within, guidelines that are set to me, and, to get out there and have a life as normal as it can be as soon as possible. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's just, so I'm going to do that and be as safe as I can, yet, try to get back to my life as soon as I possibly can, because sure, it affects your, your mental state of being, your emotional state of being, and, it trickles into other aspects of your life, and it starts screwing with your personal life and everything,
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't want to, get anyone sick. I don't want to get in huge political debates with people about this shit. All I know is I'm doing what I need to do to be safe and to get my ass back on the road so I could be sane, healthy, and safe.
Let's talk about the thing you did with Santana and Kirk. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, man.
Let me hear the story.
It was the craziest story. So I was actually here in Florida, and I had no advance warning of it, really, so to speak. And it was, I was checking emails, and all of a sudden I got an email from our booker, Mike Monterulo, and it was the subject matter. The head of the subject matter was Carlos Santana from Mark Osegueda, and I was like, "What the hell is this?" And I just kind of, and from Monterulo, and he's a booking agent, so that's why I was wondering what the hell that was. So I click on it and I open it, and it was a forwarded message, and what happened was, and it was from Carlos Santana's management, and it just said that this is Santana management, and there's a song called "America for Sale" that Carlos is interested in having Mark sing. Carlos wants to talk to Mark directly. So if you could have Mark call this number. And, we sent an email to Death Angels management, and we're also reaching out to you with something of that nature. Now, the thing with that is we're self-managed. So we do have an email for, inquiries that go to our management company, but I don't check that. We're self-managed. We all, we delegate different things. So usually the email is checked by Ted, our guitarist, and his wife, Trisha, who usually check that, but they hadn't checked it that day. So they also, on our website, you can also email our booking agent. And that's how, Santana's management sent him to that. So luckily Mike forwarded me that. And so I read through it and I was like, oh, damn, and I kind of, and I closed the email and I sat there for a while and I started pacing, and I knew they said that Kirk was playing on the song as well. And so I just kind of paced for a while, like, what the hell, do I call this number? Right.
Man? Is it going to be your buddy going, ha?
Yeah. Or, anything. I didn't know. Yeah. And then so I called Kirk first just to say, hey man, I got this email, from Carlos Santana's manager. It's like, what? He's like, oh, that's awesome. He's like, I was going to tell you about that. I mentioned you to Carlos. I brought you up a while ago because he asked if I knew any singers that were like, could sing like rock. Because, he was doing this song on this upcoming record. And he goes, I brought you up. I didn't know, if they'd hit you up or not. And sure as shit, he did. And I was like, oh, damn. So I should call. So I called, I was like, hung up with him. And I was like, oh, shit. So I called the number and it was Santana management. And they said, okay, well, Carlos wants to talk to you directly. So, you'll be getting a call, we'll let him know that you called, and you'll be getting a call in the next, 20 minutes or so. And so then I'm just, pacing around the house like, oh, geez. You know what I mean?
I'm
like, okay. And I've been, fortunate enough that what we do, I've come across a lot of people that, I guess are in the public eye, so to speak. And, and I've been fortunate, and a lot of them, are very successful. But, the end, I've met a lot of successful people and, legendary people to some via those people and, via just my own being the social cat I am. And I had met Carlos years ago, but just, in passing, from a benefit concert Kirk did with him. But that was in the 90s at some point. So, but for me to just have a one-on-one with him, that's never happened. So like, so I'm pacing around, all of a sudden my phone rings and it's a 415 number, which is my area code, Bay Area. So I pick it up, I say, hello. And then I hear this voice, the voice, and it's just like, hello, is this Mark? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, hey man, this is Carlos Santana. And I'm like, yeah, man, I know, and I just, and I just like, hey man, pleasure to talk to you. And he just kind of, he has a way of putting things like no one else does. And it is just, the way the phrases he uses and the way he talks, it's, you're talking to a sage, and he is a legend of a different, ilk compared to like my friends and whatnot. And it's just talking to him, I've known his records from my dad's collection, and, I'm a music documentary buff, and from records I have of his, and it's just so it was all coming together. It was just me and him one-on-one. And he's like saying, hey, I got this song, America for Sale, and Kirk, I asked him if there's any singers, and Kirk recommended you, so I checked you out and I listened to your stuff, so he did his research on me, and he's like, and this song will be perfect for you. It needs your energy and it needs your tenacity. And I was like, whoa, what the hell? So I started saying to hey, Carlos, man, this is an honor. And I go, no matter what you need, I'll go to the studio and I'll be a vessel, man. Just tell me what you need and I'll do exactly what you want, man. I'll be the voice of what just tell me what you need and I'll just do my best to interpret what you need and what you want. And he's like, I have no doubt, brother. I have no doubt. You're giving me chills down to my feet talking to you. I was like, damn, I was freaking out, and I was pacing and screaming at this point. And that was it. So he's like, all right, man, I just wanted to check if you're into it. I was like, yeah, I am. He's like, okay, I'm going to have management call you back and we'll set the details. We have a studio in the Bay Area. I was like, anytime I'll fly back home and just, do this. And, sure as shit, within that day, it all happened. It all, management called me. They set up, date in the studio and when I should fly back. And it was a whirlwind that day. And I was, my hands were shaking. When I hung up the phone with Carlos, my hands were shaking. I started crying, and I called my parents, and, they freaked out. They were screaming. My girl got home from work, told her, and she's like, what? Screaming shit. It was insane. And that's how it came about. And then getting in the studio, it was, the studio was gorgeous. And that was a whole other experience, and he was calling me the day before, excited about me getting in there. And, he already gave me, lyrics to it, and, kind of like a rough guide vocal that someone laid down and just kind of what to do, but he wanted me to put my spin on it. So it was crazy. And even just driving to the studio, it was like, shit, nervous as hell. But the engineer I worked with was a great guy, got in there, made me feel comfortable. And, Carlos was like, I'll be there in a sense tomorrow. You'll see. I was like, okay. So, I did my warm-ups. I had my, the lighting how I wanted. I had all my little things I need, my tea, my water, all my little bits.
Yeah.
And sure shit. The next thing you know, the screen comes up and Carlos is on the screen. This was in the height of COVID, and Carlos is there and he's like, hey, brother. I was like, hey, So it was crazy. And I was doing takes. And in between takes, I'm just, I'm looking in the control room and you'd see the engineer. But then all of a sudden, in between takes, Carlos' voice would pop in my headphone. That was great, brother. Now let's try this and let's try. And so I'm like, fuck, Carlos is listening to my takes while I'm doing them too. And it was just,
no shit.
It was insane, man. It was insane. And, at first I was nervous as hell, but then he made me feel really comfortable and we got in a groove and it got in a really good rapport. And, I did my thing, knocked it out, and he's great, man. And me and him text all the time. We text weekly. He sends me, inspirational quotes or music I should check out. I send him things, music he should check out.
No shit.
And yeah, man. And, on my birthday, he sent me a dozen white roses, and he's awesome, man. Carlos and me are tight, bro. He's awesome.
Were you starstruck at any point, or have you ever been?
Well, that was probably the first time I was starstruck, talking to someone on the phone. I was just overwhelmed.
I remember I remember you were a little overwhelmed the first time you met me. I mean, when you said
it's right. First time I met you, I was like, damn, how am I going to approach this guy?
Have you ever been starstruck?
I guess if we take it back, I remember, growing up when I was a little kid in the Bay Area, you go to restaurants with your family. And I was a little kid. Like there was a time I was in a restaurant in San Francisco. I saw the 70s. So I saw Jim Plunkett once, and I was like, oh, wow.
Oh, no shit.
My dad kept saying, quit turning around, quit staring, but I'm a kid. And, another restaurant where there's time I saw Stabler, Kenny Stabler, and I was freaking out. My dad's all, quit staring, shit like that. So those would be, and that's little kid stuff. I never met them, but they were in the same restaurant.
Yeah.
So, and I guess the first time I was probably totally starstruck with meeting someone, it would probably be 1990 Act 3 tour. So Death Angel was already together. And we were rehearsing for the Act 3 tour. We got to London about a week and a half early, and we were rehearsing at this place called John Henry Enterprises. And they were equipment, they rented out or hired equipment for European tours and whatnot, but they also had, really tricked out rehearsal rooms. And so I was rehearsing, we were rehearsing in there. And then all of a sudden, while we're jamming, going through the set that we're going to do, the studio door opened. And so this is, 1990. And all of a sudden, I'm the first person to see, the door opens and closes. And Ozzy's there, and he's watching us jam, and I'm the first person to see Ozzy, and I just stopped singing, and everyone kind of looked at me while I'm stopping, and one by one, everyone just kind of stops, and that was kind of it, and everyone just stopped, and he's like, well, back, what'd you stop for? It sounded fucking great, And then, of course, we all were like, whoa. And then our tour manager introduced him to us. And then we all took photos with him. And, and then I remember Rob was checking out different Marshall heads at the time. So we went over there, and it was crazy, trying to get his tone. And Ozzy came with us. So Ozzy was listening for a while. It was a wild experience. But that's probably my first time I've ever been starstruck. And, since then I've been fortunate enough to get to be around enough people that, in musical environment, a lot has to do with being really close with Kirk Hammett. He's one of my best friends in the world.
Yeah.
And he's since that that time, like 1990 and whatnot, he always brought me to big events. He brought me to, their shows and backstage at the shows in like larger cities, a lot of musicians are back there and whatnot. And so I'd always just he would always just bring me about. So it was just kind of around. And I think that kind of tamed me to it. But if I was ever to really of living people, that I've never met yet, I still think, I would still, any of the surviving members of Zeppelin, any of the surviving members of, Black Sabbath, I've met Bill Ward. I've never met Tony Iommi, but if I met Tony Iommi, I'd still be, beside myself or, and Jimmy Page, shit like that. It never really, I'd feel apart, I definitely wouldn't feel like, whoa, comfortable and saying, hey, so yesterday, what'd you have for lunch kind of thing? It'd definitely be, I'd be starstruck.
Well, like you, I mean, I've met a ton of people, and the only one that ever really did that to me was when I first met Mike Patton. That was the one that it just, for some reason, I fucking idolized the guy from day one. Yeah. And I just from Mr. Bungle days, and then because I knew about him before that, and then Faith No More. And I think when I met him, I just wasn't ready for it. Like, you know what I mean? And I was I was with Keith from Prodigy. And we were and he goes, come on. And we went, we walked into the room, and there was Mike, and I just it was fucking silly.
Mike's a good guy. He's crazy.
Yeah, no, I've met
in a good way. I'm crazy. Don't get me wrong.
I've talked to him since, and he's a really good human being, and he is. He's like a music encyclopedia, man. He knows everything. So
yes, he does. Sing his ass off.
Fuck yeah. So I'm really proud of you for all that. That was a really cool thing, for that whole. So let's imagine that no one knows your story,
right?
So you're a Bay Area kid, right?
Goddamn right.
Your dad. What did your dad do? He made fine cooking ware?
No. My dad was a silversmith and a metal plater.
That's what I meant. Okay, yeah.
Yep,
okay,
yep.
Yeah.
So he was a tradesman. He grew, he was in the trade.
Yeah.
My dad was born in El Salvador. Grew up in El Salvador. He moved to the States at a pretty young age. I think 10, 11 years old, maybe 10, maybe. Moved, from El Salvador to San Francisco, and then went to high school in the Excelsior. He went to high school, Balboa High School, and him and his friends were punks, and they were just crazy kids who most of them grew up in the trades. A lot of them became San Francisco police, SFPD, and a lot of them became firemen, SFFD, or they went into the trades. And my dad went into the trades, and he was in the trades all his life till he retired.
So you and I went to dinner one time with our friend Sip. It was me, and we went to the House of Prime Rib, and I thought that you told me, I could be wrong, but my brain told me my dad did all the silversmiths. He did all they bring you the prime rib on this silver platter, and you go, yeah, my dad was one of the guys that he did this stuff.
Well, what they do is House Prime Ribs is a San Francisco institution. What they do is they roll this fucking Zeppelin type thing out. It almost looks like an Airstream or a Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Uncover it. And there's this huge cow in there basically in this rib, and they just slice the prime rib off of that.
Yeah.
And my dad in the 70s, one of the places he worked used to service those and make those and maintain them, those big Zeppelins.
Okay, so that's it. Yeah, that was the story. So I'd have to say the House of Prime Rib, when you and I have been there, we've been there a couple times together, and every time, most times when I come to San Francisco, we'd meet up at some point and go to there for dinner, and it is one of the finest restaurants on the planet. I mean, it's you ever been to Oscars in Vegas? It's downtown. It's where Scorsese shoots all his scenes, because you can see right up Fremont Street from the windows. It's like a rounded window, and the food there is some of the best food I've ever eaten. But when I think about great restaurants and food and I've been to, the House of Prime Rib is up there in the top 5. I mean, incredible. And
it's an institution.
Plus we had a blast. Man. You guys got hammered, you know what I mean? Hey. So so I remember. Yeah, I don't know if you remember this story. I was in the Bay Area, and I was recording a record. And I had some time off. They were doing drums and stuff like that. So I got tickets to go see Them Crooked Vultures. And it was their very first show in Oakland. And you and I had hung out a few times before that. But that night I ran into you. You don't remember, but you were there. But it was.
I remember that show. I remember it absolutely.
But you don't remember running into me. And I remember I gave you a hug. Kirk was like, "Hey man, what's up?" And we all said hi. And you were pretty good. This is I
was younger then. Me and my friend Mark Ruddy. me and my dear friend Mark. Yeah, we got kicked out. But we saw the whole show, but we eventually got kicked out. But,
yeah. So I was a sidetrack. I got sidetracked by that. So let's go. So your dad is in the trade. So you have you and your sister, right?
Yeah, and of course my wonderful mother.
Yeah.
They're all wonderful. My mom, dad, and sister.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you what kind of kid were you?
I was a very obnoxious kid. Very obnoxious little kid. Way too much energy. Way too much energy. I always got sent to the principal. Always. Good heart, but just way too hyper. Extremely violent until about up through, say, 6th grade. Yeah, maybe I hit 6th grade. I was violent up through 5th grade. By the time I hit 6th grade, it tapered down. And but just way too much energy for my own good. But always social, very, very social, never shy. Obsessed with music, obsessed with soccer, obsessed with 70s football. But music was always my favorite, but when I was a kid, I wanted to be a, football and soccer player because I just didn't think my parents would let me be a musician. But in my mind, I just dreamed of being a musician. And my dad always had an amazing vinyl collection. Eventually, when I could get records of my own, I started building my own and just was always obsessed with music and obsessed with music documentaries back then.
What was the first album? What was the first album you bought with your own money?
First album I bought with my own money was
or a record, 45 or whatever it was.
45 was 45 was Queen, We Are the Champions, and flip side was We Will Rock You. First album was AC/DC, Let There Be Rock. First concert was Kiss, 1979, Dynasty tour at the Cow Palace.
Maybe that's why we got along, because my first album was News of the World. That was the first.
There you go.
The first record I ever bought with my own money. So
yeah. That's it, man. Yeah, and then I remember seeing Kiss, and it was like I was 10 years old. Within the first 10 minutes, I was like,
"That's it.
That's what I want to be.
That
is what I want to be when I grow up. I don't care what my parents say. I don't care what my friends say. I don't care what my teachers say. I don't care what my grandparents say. That is what I want to be when I grow up.
So what was your first band?
First band I ever joined?
Yeah.
A band called Death Angel.
Was it Death Angel? Oh, all
right. A band called Death Angel.
So
I kind of took the
old were you?
Express Elevator. I took vocal lessons prior to that. I sang in choir in my freshman year, and I was already growing my hair. And then sophomore year, I was 15 years old, and Death Angel had already been together. They've been together since '82, so it was '84 that Rob approached me because I was helping them. I guess you could call it a roadie, so to speak. Yeah. But I wasn't even old enough to drive. Neither.
Who was their singer then? Was Rob singing, or did they have a different singer?
Rob and Dennis were switching off vocals.
Oh, okay.
So Rob was playing guitar and singing, and Dennis was playing bass and singing. And they already, they were doing, playing clubs in San Francisco. I'd go see them and then help them load equipment, and then I'd start introducing them. Before they'd go on, because they're like, we need someone to introduce us. And by that point, I was very social already, and just kind of, and I do this, just what was that thing, I'm like, good evening, San Francisco. Are you ready? Are you ready for the ultra violence? Because they already wrote the song, The Ultra Violence.
Right.
And I'd say that, and then I'd say something like, be prepared to face your death. This is Death Angel. And then I'd do some long, high scream after that. And that was my intro. And then I'd walk off and, sit on the side of the stage. And if someone jumped on the stage and it was kind of, try to push them off. And I say try, because I wasn't, 15-year-old. And then, so that was kind of it. And then eventually they knew I could scream. And I was already taking voice lessons. And I always just thought, their band was already together. So I was going to eventually form a band with some other friends and whatnot. And then Rob approached me. Me and him went to the same high school, and approached me and said, "Hey, man, I wrote the song, and it needs some screaming on it. What do you think about coming to the rehearsal room, this weekend, and try singing it? And let's see how it sounds." And I was like, "Oh shit, yeah, of course." And the rehearsal room was Andy, our original drummer's Andy's parents' garage in Daly City. And so I was like, yeah, okay. And she was my aunt and uncle. So I went there, and, it was a song called Kill Is One. And I went there, and we put a boom box in a cardboard box, hit play and record, covered it with a jacket, threw it in the middle of the room. And, I sang Kill Is One, and we listened to it back on the cassette, liked how it sounded, and So next thing you know, I was introducing them singing, one song, introducing them singing 2 songs, and 2 became 3. And, that was kind of it. And my first live show being on stage with a band, not say a high school choir, was November 24th, 1984, Megadeth and Death Angel at the Stone in San Francisco. So I was 15.
Oh shit!
Yeah, it was my 15. First live show.
So dude, I've been a fan since day one. You know that. We've had this. You know the story, right? So, it was in the tape trading days, and I was back in New York. So the rumor was, dude, you got to hear this band. They're all brothers from the Philippines, and they're all kids. They're all like 15. So it was something special because they're all family. Like, yes. And then, I mean, you guys were related in certain ways. But the rumors were that it was much more deep than that. They're all brothers. And anyway, so by the time I actually, Act 3 came around, I was always a fan from day one. And Act 3 cemented my fandom in you guys, and I saw you a couple times in New York, and then later.
Hold on.
All right.
Whoa, this is interesting. Hold on one sec.
All right.
One moment. Sorry. Look at it. You're getting a real dose of life.
No, man, it's good, man. My cat usually jumps on my lap at some point.
There we go. Hey there. No, it's okay. I'm just doing it. I'm doing an interview. So there you go. No. Yeah. See that? Yeah. Okay. See?
So you're 15 years old. All right. So you're 15. Death Angel starts playing shows, opening for Megadeth, your first show.
My very first live experience. And then you know what my second was?
Exodus.
Nope.
Slayer.
Well, maybe it was actually. I take that back. I think it might have been Exodus. I don't think it was. No, that's my second show ever. No, I'm lying because we did some headliners. Yeah, nope, I'm lying. We did some headliners after that. So, but my 16th birthday show. So this is probably the difference. My 16th birthday show.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough. It was, same venue, the Stone, February 9th. Slayer, Death Angel, February 9th. My 16th birthday show, Hell Awaits tour for them. And, we were still just,
fucking off.
And just getting shows. So,
yeah, man. Yeah, man, that's an incredible fucking story, dude. And you've been going on ever since. And I have to say, so I saw you in the very early days when you in the first couple years, and then I got to tour with you all the way up to like 2014. And
damn right,
you guys. I remember being, I don't know if I probably told you a story, but we were backstage getting ready, and Lee came in the dressing room and says, dude, you guys need to bring it tonight because fucking Death Angel just served us a fucking lunch that I don't know if we're going to be able to. And then I watched every show. So I started watching all the shows, and you guys bring it every night. Didn't matter who was in the crowd, how many people was there. It was like, and I could always tell you were doing it for the love of doing it. And, that's not the case for every band on the planet. Some are just walking the motions. And I could say wholeheartedly, you guys never did that. Not once, Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
We're definitely not doing it for the money. Oh, Jesus. We're doing better than before, but we're by no means rolling in anything except for, fuck. So thank you. And we do it for, we're still striving to get to, some sort of comfort level, but we love doing it, and I just absolutely, I can't picture ever, never not playing music. The only way I could picture it is these past 2 years of the pandemic. And I can tell you, it's probably the most miserable I've ever been. And it's, for people around me, it's probably the most miserable they've ever seen.
Yeah.
Cause I'm a pretty, happy-go-lucky guy. And then, it's just to experience this. It's just like, I got to do music. And I've been fortunate enough that Death Angels brought me opportunities to jam with, other people, say, like Metal Allegiance, and, other people have invited me to sing on their records. And, and that most recently I've been jamming now, fortunate enough, with, Kirk and Robert Trujillo's project, The Wedding Band, with John Theodore and, Doc Coyle and, Whit Crane. And it's been awesome. So like music has brought the best people into my world, the best experiences into my world. And, it's given me, the hardest triumphs. I mean, the hardest, pitfalls of my life, but it's given me the biggest triumphs of my life that have far outweighed that. So I'll never give up on it. And it's never let me down.
Yeah.
In the grand scope of things,
I as we're talking, once in a while I'll put up pictures of moments of your life. I'll put up, like, as we're talking about the younger days, I'll put up a younger picture. And I went through the pictures of me and you, and every single picture of me and you, we're laughing and have the biggest grins on our face. There wasn't one picture where we're just stoic and standing there. Every single picture is us having a fucking blast, because I can say on tour that I had the most fun with you I've ever had in all my musical career was hanging out with you on tour. Just hanging out, just doing the shows was fun, but just hanging out, we always had a blast, and it was always a good time.
Well, I mean, come on, that was the best. That tour to this day is one of the best tours we ever did. That was what the Creator, Exodus, Death Angel, and Suicidal Angels. But the bond that was the tour that solidified the bond between us and Exodus. And we've been playing with Exodus since the early 80s, but we never toured together. And that was the first time, so we'd always been bros growing up in the scene, but that was the first time we'd ever toured together. And they would always, Creator would always put us in the same dressing room. And the hangs, were incredible prior to the show, after the show, and the bond that we built. And come on, and Exodus, of course, you guys killed it every night as well. So it was just, and that's what we did. We pushed each other, but we also had the best time together. And it was probably the most debaucherous tour.
Oh yeah, you guys used to come out on stage, sing Toxic. I'll never forget I'm going to tell a Mark story. So we're backstage. It's after the show. It's all mellow. We're kind of hanging out. Lee and me and Mark, and then we're sitting on one couch, and there's a table full of booze in front of us, and there's like people coming in and out, and the band's earlier, and they always put Exodus and Death Angel in the same dressing room, but everyone was kind of like, after the show, everyone's trying to calm down, and I put on music, and I put on Delivering the Goods, and Mark jumped up on the table, kicked all the booze off the table, and just started singing Delivering the Goods at full blast, dude. It was. And then the whole night kicked off into this crazy party, and we had such a good time. And that was the way it went. I
don't think anyone's ever been the same after that tour. No one. Yeah. Including the Exodus guys. We still talk about it. With Lee, Gary. I think Jack was still drinking at the time.
Yeah, he was.
And, and of course, me and my guys, but we'd never been the same. No one's ever truly recovered from that. And to a good sense, we all at least got some sort of sense of self-respect and health and some because it was just brutal.
Hellfest was killer. Oh yeah, it was.
We went so through good. On that tour. I remember backstage there was always a ton of Jägermeister, which we'd go through, which was just
how you guys drank that shit.
And then and then Lee would always bring, we were doing vodka and Tabasco shots, which was the most just brutal, how it would tear through your stomach. And we went through so many bottles of Tabasco, let alone vodka. I mean, it was just how we survived that tour. And, you know, we did, but we
and
all
played well.
Yeah. Yeah. And we all toned down a lot since then, and all gotten a lot healthier since then. But, it was one of the most, but the bond we created, again, as I could say, it was one of the funnest tours looking back that I've ever been a part of. And, it was beautiful, you know, and you know, the love, the endless love for you guys is, you know, undeniable. Yeah.
I got one more thing I wanted to say before I'm going to go back into your earlier history, but, we did that 70,000 Tons tour, the very first one. And
the
you
ship.
guys,
the crew,
the ship.
Yeah.
It was, so Bob Tyrell was there, and we were just having a blast. It was a really good party. Me and you were doing karaoke. We did YMCA. Everyone got really hammered. We did Celebration. We were doing, it was killer. But at one point, you guys were playing the outside pool deck, and I had before at one point before that, we were together hanging out. I told you guys that one of the darkest moments of my life, Act 3 was the album that I was listening to. It was probably the time right before I got sober, and it was one of the hardest times of my life. And Veiled Deception and Room with a View were songs that used to bring me to fucking tears, and it used to fucking choke me up. And all of a sudden, you guys are on the outside deck, and you looked up at me and you said, "This one's for you, brother." And you guys played it. I mean, I get choked up thinking about it. It was, it was fucking beautiful. And I'll never, it was just, I can't, it was so fucking, and it wasn't something you guys played all the time. You hardly ever played it.
We still hardly ever play it.
But you played it for me. And that was, I get goosebumps thinking about it, man. I get choked up thinking about it, because it brought me back to that time, but I knew how far I had come from there, and how, but it was one of those things where music grabs hold of you and helps you through some of the darkest times. And it also is the soundtrack to some of the best times of your life. So
absolutely.
So I always, I had nothing but huge love for you for that. Plus you guys fucking brought the ship down when you played Holy Diver.
Yeah.
And fucking. And
it was Heaven and Hell. Heaven and
Hell. And we're like, and I looked at Lee and I went, dude, they just won. They just won the whole boat. Like, nobody can top that. We rented tuxedos to play in because we were trying to, how are we going to top Heaven and Hell? It didn't even work. Yeah. So fuck. Anyway. So what was the first tour like? The very first tour, going back, I know I'm jumping around, but I don't care.
No, I mean, that's so,
going back to,
for Christ's sake.
Yeah. So you're what, 16 now?
No, my first tour, let me see. I'm getting things just to make sure that we're, I have extra power going.
Okay.
My first tour was until 87. So, the Ultraviolence, so I was a senior. I was a senior at that point. The Ultraviolence, our debut album, came out my senior year in high school. And so I was 18. Rob had just graduated. There were only two people left in high school at that point. So Rob had graduated in 88, and Dennis and Gus the year prior to that. So, Rob had graduated in 86, rather. And then Dennis and Gus graduated in 85. And then, so I graduated in 87, and then Andy was 3 years behind me. So me and Andy were the only two that could have been affected, but I guess to a certain degree, I was fortunate enough that it came out my senior year, and I graduated with my class. And I always promised my parents I would graduate with my class, not get, a GED or something of that nature. And and we went on tour. Maybe I think 2 weeks later, all of a sudden we were touring the United States, and we bought a Dodge van for $2,500, and we just piled in and just went for it. We had some, I forget the guy's name, some teenage kid who was booking the tour he was somewhere, based out of Middle America. And, it was a brutal tour, but some of the shows were amazing. Or some of the shows and we were driving, taking turns driving, and we had a crew of like 3 people. I think one guy was this guy Wilson, who's kind of went a little hamburger train, if you will, and then this other guy named Bob Gamber, and he now owns a record store out by Monterey, California. And the other guy who was tour managing was this guy named Doug Goodman, who has since gone on to, tour manage Green Day, Beck, Slayer,
Right.
But he's still, he's a lifelong friend, and it's crazy. But that tour, as I said, was one of the hardest tours ever because this van was breaking down all the time. And, we drive maybe, 11 hours to get to a show, and the club would be there and they'd be like, well, your guy never confirmed, but we'll let you play if you want, but no one knows the show. So we literally we drove all that way. So we just set up in this place, whether it be a club or an arcade, and just set up equipment. We'd make handbills. We'd go to like Kinko's, Copies, or whatever, make handbills, go to the record shops and go to the mall and just that day hand out handbills.
Oh, man.
Or the metal store. And people were like, oh shit, we heard that it might happen, but it was never confirmed. And, that were, most of the fans were like our age. So, it was that. We'd try to look for, meet people that would let us shower at their house or let us, crash at their house, or some people were cool enough to, cook us food and shit. It was a brutal tour while it was happening. I, hated it, but in retrospect, looking back on it, it's one of the, most memorable, fun tours of my life, and for an album to this day that is still, will always be to a certain degree my favorite Death Angel record, because it was the Ultraviolence, our first, record, and that was my dream come true as a kid to put out a record. And
it's such a good record too. Yeah, it's such a good record.
Oh, thanks, bro.
Yeah.
Look at that! I just added a power strip to my phone, so
good.
I'm good. I'm good.
So, of all the years, including that one, right?
Yeah.
What was personally the worst show you ever had?
Oh, what would be the worst show I ever had? That's a tough one, because I'd say it'd be. I wouldn't remember the name of the city, but it was a city in Germany. Of all the years we played, I've only ever missed one show. One show, and I was so sick. And I remember the night before, I thought I couldn't do a show. And how it is touring. You got to go on stage, whether if you're throwing up, if you have strep throat, if no matter, you have no equilibrium, no matter what, you go on.
Yeah.
And I think it was 88. So it was Frolic Through the Park tour. And I was sick as a dog. And I remember thinking, I get there. How am I going to do this? And I did it. I had like no voice. And I went on and I did the show. It was somewhere in Germany. And then I just remember the next day, there was nothing. Nothing was coming out at all. And I was just, just sweating profusely, just full-blown flu. And or strep throat. I don't even know. It was 88. So I was 20.
Yeah.
I had no, and I couldn't do the show. I went to the venue just to see, and, nothing was happening. I was like, you could barely even stand up. And so I went to the venue. I tried to talk to the crowd before we went on, saying I couldn't. But the guys went on, and they went on instrumental. And this was like when the thrash scene was still booming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they went on instrumental. The crowd was fucking singing at the top of their lungs. And it was beautiful in that regard. But just the fact that I couldn't. So I'd say the worst show was probably the night before that. So there you go. I can't remember the date. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I can't remember the date, but I know it was in Germany. And then I guess other than that would probably be we played in, was it Fremont or Hayward? I feel bad because I'm from the goddamn Bay Area. I think it was Hayward. Excuse me. We played a show there. It was us, Violence, and I think this band Chaos. I don't remember the full lineup. I think it was us, Violence, and Chaos, and but I know it was us and Violence for sure.
Yeah.
And they never really had shows in that city at the time back then. And we went on stage, and there was like a riot basically happened. Police came in full riot gear. We played like 2 songs, and they came in and they cut us off, and then and that was it. Just so you get cut off after playing 2 songs, it just sucks.
Yeah.
And then so that was it. And then
for what reason? What was the reason? Was it just they weren't allowed to have shows there, or?
Well, yeah, and the venue, the venue put it together, but they never realized, they never been to a thrash show or saw a thrash show happen. And Pitt broke out. The owner fucking lost his mind, didn't know what was happening, so he called the police in panic to stop the violence that was going on. And meanwhile, there was a protest or something happening in Berkeley, which was, near there. And it was getting, and the riots were happening. So they were calling riot police from other cities to go help with that. I get it. And then riot police came into our show to stop it because, this guy didn't know heads or tails of what the fuck was happening. And sure as shit, since they came in that, in their full riot regalia, the fans started throwing chairs at them, and the cops used tear gas. It was this whole just chaos. Fans started smashing out windows, and it was just, looking back on it, we could say like, hey, we've had a riot at our show, but at the same time, I'd rather play a full show than 2 songs. So that kind of pissed me off.
Still sounds fun as shit. Fuck.
Well, yeah. That's why looking back, it's fun to say you've had a riot. Yeah.
So, in counterpoint, what's the best show of your memory? Do you have a show that was like, okay, this was the one? I have a handful, but I have one that just stands out to me. But in your experience,
I definitely have a handful. I think, in all honesty, I think that special set on on the outside deck of 70,000 tons of metal, the very first one.
Really?
That we played the outside, the one you're talking about. That's definitely one. Huh. It's weird to say, but people might think this is odd, but it's not. I'd say one of the best shows I think we've ever done was the most recent show that we did in Oakland at the Fox Theater. That was the one show that was salvaged from the canceled dates of the Testament, Exodus, Death Angel show.
Yeah.
Our set that night for me was one of the best sets we've ever played. And then, wow. Then now it starts getting, that's where it starts getting cloudy. It gets a little cloudy because things start, really just kind of, melting into a blur of a bunch of fucking shows. Yeah. But those are 2 that stand out. And maybe that one just because it was so recent. Yeah.
I know we've toured so many times. I mean, we've toured multiple times. So the one time that I remember was the one show that stands out for me was when you guys played. We were in Italy. They threw me out of the club. They threw me out of the club later. But your set I watched from the balcony. And do you remember when they threw me out of the club that night? It was we're throwing a water bottle at the fucking sound guy because he
absolutely.
I threw the monitor off the stage, and it was a fucking shit show. But you guys, I watched your set before, so I was amped up. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, fuck, I got to bring it because the boys just fucking blew this place up. But you guys, in the middle of one of your songs, I forget how you did it. I forget what song it was. It might have been your closer, but you would for me, you guys all looked up at me and you did Rush. You played this section of a Rush song for me, and then went back into your song. Like you stopped and all looked at me, and I was like, ah. I forget what it was, but that show and you guys at Hellfest in 2013 or 12, whatever year it was, that Hellfest that year was fucking amazing. It was when SIP came out.
Yep, that was an awesome show.
Yeah,
I remember I was on side stage for your show too. Yeah, we both fucking killed it that day.
Yeah,
I absolutely remember that.
I was standing on the side of here. I was like, I have pictures of me. I have pictures of me and like me and Sip and Keith and Julia were just like fucking staring at you guys. So yeah, I would fucking because you guys were so good. So we got the best show, worst show. You know, we know the tours. So throughout all the years, right?
Yeah, I
know that at some point, every band, with the exception of a few, goes through member changes and goes through all that stuff. I know that at one point you guys had a bad van accident.
Our RV.
Yeah.
Big old RV, yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about that, because I know parts of the story. I don't know the whole story.
Yeah, it was, I'll give you a Cliff's Note version because it's a pretty intense story. But I remember, so we were on tour. It was Act 3 tour. It was the pretty much, I guess, the final Act 3 shows that happened with the original lineup. And we were leaving from, I believe it was Tucson to Las Vegas. It was November. I don't remember the date. I know it was November, and I guess you should, but some people always remember the bad dates, and that one, for some reason, I think maybe as a defense mechanism, I choose to erase it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I know it was in November, and I could be lying. It could be September. Fuck's sake, I don't know. See, that's why. You know what I mean? I
looked it up. It was May.
Okay, well, yeah, exactly. I don't remember. I try not to reflect on the bad, and it was the worst.
I kind of have to, because we're having it. I want people to. This is like I try to keep this like a conversation that you and I would be talking backstage. And I remember you and I had this conversation once before, but it was important because it meant a lot to me that you told me the story, and then it meant that it was a profounding change in your dynamic as a band. So
and me as a person for sure. So we were leaving, and the driver fell asleep. It was in the middle of the desert, and when he came to, he overcorrected, and it was in the middle of the desert. And the vehicle flipped twice, and then slid on its side for like, I don't know, something like 300 feet or 200 feet or some ridiculous amount. You know what I mean? And when it finally, I could remember visually everything. I remember the sounds. I could see the sparks flying off the asphalt. I remember the asphalt burning my feet because my foot was on one of the windows on the glass, and I had to pull myself off from whatever was up here, like a bed frame thing, and I could pull myself up. And I remember holding myself up, and while it was sliding, and just waiting for impact, because we were sliding for so long, and you just assume, because you can't see, that accidents have impact, but there was no impact. Eventually it just stopped sliding. But the sound, I'll never forget, just metal on asphalt, glass, everything breaking. And I remember coming to, when it finally stopped, I kind of let myself, unfold, so to speak, wiggled my toes, and made sure all my limbs and shit worked, and just I just kind of I just remember saying me and Rob and I think Gus were in the front, and Dennis and Andy were in the back, and I remember saying, is everyone okay? Is everyone okay? And I could hear Dennis, kind of screaming from the back, get back here, it's Andy. And we couldn't get through the middle because the middle was smashed. So, and it was laying on its side. So I opened the window that was once a side window because it was facing the top. I opened that, climbed out. Me and Rob and Gus climbed out and ran across the side. and then opened that window, and Dennis was pulling a bunch of things off the ground, and unfortunately Andy was the one who got really injured in that accident. People got scrapes and bruises. I hurt my toe, my big toe on my left foot, and had to be on crutches for a while, and one of those funny boots, and then a cane for a while. But that pales in comparison to the degree of injuries Andy got. And so it was in the middle of the desert. It was like 5 a.m, and this was pre-cell phones.
Yeah.
So, and we got Andy out. We all moved to the side of the road, and we're freezing because people don't realize that. They see desert and they see it from TV and they think it's always hot. Well, it's fucking not.
No.
Early in the morning, the desert's fucking freezing. It's fucking
goes down to 30s. It'd be a 40-degree difference.
Yeah. So we're freezing. We're all out there shivering in sweats and pajamas or whatnot. Holding Andy and crying because no one's coming by, and there's no cell phones. Finally, a trucker comes by. He uses CB, and then eventually a cop comes, and they call an ambulance, and the ambulance is like, we need to helicopter this guy to the nearest hospital, which is Andy, and they helicopter him to Las Vegas hospital. And then thankfully he had great, medical staff and whatnot, and they took care of him. And, he's still around today, thankfully, and still playing drums, but his injuries were very extensive. And I, and he's still playing drums today. He plays his ass off. But there was something in me after that accident that had happened, because we had signed a bunch of shit we should have never signed when we were young. And all that came back to haunt us during all our years of existence. And this was Act 3, when we were supposed to be doing, we were riding on our high, our most successful record. Our touring's going great. And the tension between the band internally was already happening, because we were already always in litigation. We were always getting sued by someone, and rightfully so, because we signed something in a contract that we shouldn't have signed, but we didn't know because we were fucking young. You know what I mean? And so eventually it got to the point where we were always in meetings, always in litigation. And the fun side of this dream I had of what music would be was this harsh slap in the face of the business side of it that just started poisoning me. And it was eating at the core of the band. For us to say it was us against the world at that point, in my eyes, was bullshit. There was tension in the band now because of all this crap. And then this accident happened, and that was the moment that I felt it clicked, that I was like, I'm done. I gave it my all. I'm fucking done. This business sucks. This was some sort of message from some sort of higher power. I'm out. And I didn't do it right there at the scene. I'm like, hey guys, I'm out.
I know, I get it.
No thumb in the air or no shit like that. But after shock wore off, because we got picked up. I got brought to the hospital, but I didn't take no goddamn helicopter. But a cop brought me, an ambulance brought us all. But I quit after we were home, a couple of weeks, and Andy, was back in San Francisco, and he had, he was in a hospital there, or, had doctor appointments there with surgeons and whatnot. I got everyone on the phone individually. I think called Rob first and let him know that, I've had it. And I called them all individually, let them know. And that, that was it for me. And that was supposed to be it, but we had a tour Japan booked that it was one of those things, if we canceled, we'd get sued again. We just could not afford to not do this tour.
Right.
And we were like, Jesus Christ, I just wanted to be done, dude. I just wanted this done. I wanted to move on to the next part of my life, and I just couldn't and take another legal problem. So we did this tour Japan without Andy. The only shows we ever did without Andy up to that point, or without, the 5 of us. And so Chris Contos filled in and did those on drums. And this was prior to him being in Machine Head or anything like that. Prior to that, he'd been in a band called Attitude Adjustment. It was, that kind of changed the scope of things to a certain degree in punk. in San Francisco, because they had a movement for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that debut album's awesome to this day.
I do too. I love it.
Yeah. So they put that out, but there was, they had broken up, and, we knew Chris, and he came in, and, he came in and did a great job during a time when, he knew the four of us didn't want to do the tour, but had to, and he made the best of it. And, it was sad for all of us after we did maybe 6-7 shows in Japan. And, at the end of the shows, you could see people, the crowds were crying and shit because they knew Death Angel was no more. These were going to be the last shows. And it was really odd. And then, from Japan, I moved from Japan. Everyone flew back to San Francisco, and I flew straight to New York. And I moved to New York. And it was just kind of, crazy thing. And I thought I was never going to play music again. But, my love for music is it's too much. And I think I lasted about a year and a half before I started playing music again. And right. that's what happened. So, yeah, crazy.
So you're in New York.
Yep.
And started playing music again. And then did you call Rob and go, hey man, did they go on without you? Did they get another singer? Did they?
They carried on without me. They decided, they made the call to not go on as Death Angel. We were all kind of, as I said,
that's right. That's
right.
Yeah,
as I said, things weren't all, by that point, it's neat to say,
they were the organization.
Nice, yeah. It'd be nice to say that, it was all, roses, but it wasn't. They wanted to kind of put the ashes of Death Angel behind them too. So they formed a band. It was all the 4 original members. Once Andy healed up, Andy, Rob, Dennis, and Gus.
Yeah.
So they went on as the organization, and it was I believe at that point Rob and Andy handled most of the vocal duties, switching off back and forth, and Dennis maybe sang a song or two. And they toured. They put out a couple records on, I believe, Metal Blade, different style of music. They refused to play any Death Angel live, so they kind of took that same approach and toured a couple times and did their thing. And power to them for sticking to their guns. I also pursued music in another direction. Didn't play Death Angel songs, and so we went our separate ways. And I needed to go my separate ways from them. I didn't know life without them, and I wanted a life without them.
Yeah.
So I've said it before. I wish the accident didn't happen, so to speak. I wish I could. If I could take, I would take that back in a heartbeat. But other scenarios leading up to that, when people say, "Do you regret quitting Death Angel?" Absolutely not. I'd do it again. That needed to happen for me to, I guess, to sound hokey, find myself, find me outside of Death Angel, find other avenues of music to get back to the person I am now, to be a stronger front man, a stronger singer, a more confident front man, a more confident singer for Death Angel. For Death Angel or whatever else comes my way, Yeah. And be just a more confident person. And that's kind of what I needed to do, and get my shit together. And so.
And I have to say the last records you guys have put out are some of the strongest of your career. Your vocals, and I'm not doing this to kiss your ass either. No. When they come out, I got to watch it. I got to watch it live when I got to tour with you. So, when sometimes when a band, there's this bias. But if I didn't, I always felt that way before I even knew you. You know what I mean? Your music, your music had always meant something to me, even before we became friends, which was even a weirder experience from my point of view, because I'm like, holy shit, And I remember admitting that to you, and you just gave me a hug, and we just and fucking So now you're back on the path. Will and Damien are awesome. And
goddamn
Ted,
right.
And Ted, of course, you guys are a fucking machine live. Rob is, I don't, Rob is one of the most underrated guitar players I've ever watched, because I've watched him play live, and it's astounding how he he crosses like 3 or 4 different styles of music in one passage. And I've seen him do it, and I've watched it, and it's and then Will is also of course the drummer. I think Will plays drums in 68 bands right now, or 69 bands. I forget which one it is.
Will's a beast. Will's a beast. But at the same time, that's something to harken back on. I do want to harken back on that, because I don't want to gloss over the fact that, with the lineup we have now with Damien, Will, Ted, me, and Rob is the longest running lineup Death Angels ever in Death Angel history.
Yeah.
It's the longest running lineup. It's also, we put out the most original material as far as the most records. So we put out 4 studio records with them, which is the most of one lineup, all produced by Jason Sukoff. And it's just like, this is the strongest unit Death Angels ever had.
And it shows. It shows musically. It shows musically, and it shows live. I mean, it's not. I'm not pissing on the other records, because I love them, but the new stuff is it's a natural progression that you're just getting better as time goes on.
I appreciate that.
Where a lot of bands don't do that. A lot of bands, they fucking they kind of peak, right, and then they kind of like and then maybe they have this, but you guys have just kept steady going uphill, and I'm saying that from a fan point of view, not as a friend.
I appreciate that. I mean, that's something we're very confident in the music we're writing to this day, and this era of Death Angels songwriting abilities, and how we perform it. I mean, our live set, sure, we'll do. We're definitely a band that's confident enough that when we go on tour, we do a great deal of material that consists of this lineup.
Yeah,
we throw in our Voracious Souls or our Evil Priest, or and I'm not making light of those songs, because those songs, that era needed to happen to create this era. But what I'm saying is, you go see some bands and they'll put out new material, but they'll rely on just their early era.
Exactly.
Where we're fucking definitely confident enough to put a great deal of our current era music in, and pepper it and spice it with some of the early era.
Yeah,
that's the opposite.
That was the thing. Well, I remember going on tour with you guys, and you guys were playing. It was 80% new shit, and then a couple of the old ones, and So I'd have to say that some of the best times of my life have been hanging out with Mark. I remember one night. I'm going to tell a quick story. Generation Kill's playing in New Jersey. Mark was in Brooklyn. So I went and I picked him up, and I brought him to the show, and he hung out with Generation Kill, and he got up and sang. We did a cover of Disposable Heroes, and he came up and sang it. And then and then we went to a diner, and I drove him back to Brooklyn. He was supposed to get on. I'll take a train. I'm like, nah, I'm driving you home, because we always had so much fun, and it was just when you and Sip would get together in New York. I have pictures of you. It's me, you, Sip, and Michael Lago. We had lunch together, and the every picture, there's like 10 pictures, and every single one, all of us had these biggest grins on our face and laughing. Because we always had a blast. We remember we met up and went to the Cro-Mags one night, and then we went and hung out with John afterward, and had a fucking blast. I just had John sing on the new Generation Kill record. So
nice.
Yeah,
nice.
Man. So and then I think him and Michael, actually, when he recorded it for me, he went to a studio, and Michael came along, and so anyway, I just remember you were always a really good friend, and you've always been just a fucking dynamite dude from day one, when I met you. And I wish you all the best going forward from here. I really hope that the pandemic allows us to go back to the normality of our lives, and we can, is normality even a word?
Hey, man, works for me. I guess even if it's not, I'm sure the people out there will understand what you mean. Let's say normalcy.
Yeah, all right. So everything gets back to normal, and then I hope that maybe you and kid at some point. I would love to go back, take Generation Kill out on tour, and we go do something together, because it would that would be fun as shit. You know what I mean? So
I know,
anyway,
baby.
Yeah. But I'll see you here. I think you guys are playing Tucson with Exodus. I think I'm going to come down So
yeah, Rialto Theater, right?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna take the trip and jump up and sing "Toxic" with the band, the boys. You know what I mean?
Good.
So
well,
I'll come.
Do everyone the favor. Do everyone the favor, and I love you. You know I love you. So the feeling's mutual. You know that. Our history together is awesome.
Yeah. You're a beautiful human being, and you have a beautiful story, dude. You really do. You have a, from coming from where you come from to being in that scene, growing up in that scene started it all. And you guys were like the second wave. Yeah. You were in the forefront of that little second wave of thrash metal, and your place in history is without a doubt set in stone.
There you go. Well, and the story's not over. The story's far from over. I'm far from done, as is Death Angel. Death Angel's far from done, but I'm far from done as well.
Yeah, man. So anyway, man, I will talk to you soon, man. All right.
Sure will, brother. All right, man.
Peace.
Thanks, Dukes. Love you, brother.
Love it.